Welcome to Health Tech Heroes, where we talk to innovators who are rewriting DNA of healthcare. I'm excited to introduce Peter Oykhman, founder and CEO of PsyTech VR. Peter is doing incredible work combining virtual reality with mental health treatment, making therapy more accessible and effective through immersive tech. He's also the brain behind Core Partners, bringing cutting-edge technology to healthcare organizations. With over 20 plus years in health tech, Peter has fascinating insight into where healthcare is headed. Peter, welcome to Health Tech Heroes.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Peter, you are on the cutting edge of the cutting edge technology, and there was an origin story to this, which sparked a light that this is where we need to go. I believe you spent significant time in Core Partners, then you went on to the PsyTech VR. I would love to understand why and when and how that idea sparked and what made you make that trajectory change and you landed into such an exciting area.
My story is probably is not such unusual stories. I'm before that I've been doing a lot of software development, logistics, that sort of things, and I've been doing it for a really long time, over 20 years. Actually, I've been doing IT for almost like 40 years, which is kind of a little bit scary, but it is what it is. And involved in this logistics space, various aspects of logistics. And honestly, in 20 years, it feels like I learned everything about logistics there is to learn. And I was like, well, I still want to, I was looking for something exciting, and technology, especially in the last, 5 years, provides a lot of this excitement. So I looked at the virtual reality. It's a great tool. It's a great I think it has a great potential, but more complicated question, it's like we were talking about, this before our podcast. It's like, why? So it's like, yeah, it's a, virtual reality, super immersive, super kind of interesting, has a lot of these options, but where to apply this? So we started looking with my partner at where really to apply this technology, and you could apply this technology into training, simulation, and all kinds of stuff. The problem is, I read this kind of a presentation at some point. Are you building a pain pill or vitamin? And after so many years doing business, you want to build actually a pain pill that people would be taking and that would make a difference, actual difference. And we found that we looked at a few different, as I said, options, but when we looked at it, psychology and the state of the psychiatry right now, it was a little bit scary because it's not in the 21st century by any means, and especially everything related to anxiety turns out that it's not the 21st century. So, and that this is where we started. We started looking at what can we do, and we found this field of people who are having different forms of anxiety, fear, phobia, PTSD, general anxiety, that where technology, this virtual reality, could make a big difference, especially lately, in the last couple of years, we're combining virtual reality, AI, and, a couple other things together, and that would make, and it does make a serious impact, and like how what options people have. Not a silver bullet. We're never pretended that there is. I don't think there is any silver bullet in this life, but to provide this additional tool to the clinicians that would allow them to reach out to their patients better, to be more effective in their treatment. That's essentially what we're building. Honestly speaking, it's doing that, we discovered there are so many other things you can do with virtual reality. But you have to stay focused, especially when you're kind of building a business. But we discovered that these tools could be applied for autism, schizophrenia, and so many other things. But again, we're still kind of focusing on various forms of anxiety, and that's our plan.
I really like the idea of starting into a very focused niche. The next question for me comes from a little bit of understanding, need for understanding. How and why does the virtual realities, from your perspective, such a useful tool? If I am a patient, what can I achieve through it? And also a part of this question is sometimes the patients can go into a state where we need an expert to pull them out. So how do we set those guardrails? Is there a physician directly involved when they are in the virtual reality?
Yeah,
How does the session look like when we are going through a virtual reality session?
the right. The workflow is fairly simple. So let me start with kind of traditional treatment. So when people are coming to the psychologist, so mental health professionals, because that could be a psychologist, that could be a psychiatrist, social workers, counselors, and all these people are dealing with anxiety. So it's basically, let's say you have some fear or phobia, and that's one of the most common sayings in the field. So again, we're IT guys. We're not psychologists or psychiatrists. I just happen to talk to about 300-400 of psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers in the last 3 years. But the most commonly used tool is imaginary exposure. So which essentially means that if you have some phobia, the doctor is asking you to imagine, the source of your fear, your stimuli or trigger, and to work through this anxiety using like traditional CBT or EMDR, traditional kind of a process, which that's been used. Like Aaron Beck came up with CBT in the mid '60s, and that's been used for the last whatever it is, 60 plus years, 70 years. So what we're offering, and this is a difference, that instead of asking the patient to imagine something, clinician actually could show or could create with a patient this picture with this stimuli, with this trigger. So which is changing dynamic completely, because it's very patient specific. It's very immersive. It could be actually gradual, so it doesn't have to be like, if you're afraid of spiders, it doesn't have to be a huge spider in front of you. You could create like a little spider. So it's very important to do this gradual exposure as well. But essentially you're creating this, clinician is pushing this image on a patient, in a patient headset, in this virtual reality, and basically guiding this patient through the same process, right? So the first step is it's very, very personal. So if you could explain, spiders, what kind of spiders, because again, spiders are different in the US, or let's say in Australia or Southeast Asia or Africa. Spiders are, and same thing goes to snakes and anything from a flies to birds to anything. So it's very custom experience. Second part is and again, that's a tool that describe it and AI will create this thing for you. We also have about 150 plus scenarios which we pre-built already, so that you could use clinician could use and essentially walk through with this, and that could be done in a couple different ways. So clinician could be in a scenario with a patient, or you could clinician could be just sending this image to the patient. And also we have a mental wellness part, which you could be transitioned from this stimuli, from this kind of experience, from the triggers, to this mental wellness, where essentially our platform allows patients to learn how to go back to normal. And that's a whole process. And typically CBT doctors, they're a little bit of an sadist part that, they want to bring patient to the brink of kind of a, yes. So, and then they will transfer them to this. EMDR is a little bit different. They don't have to kind of go to the edge, but every time when you're bringing patient back, it has to be a little bit kind of a more blurred image. So but in both cases, clinician is teaching patients, how to deal with the source of their fears, how to deal with their triggers, how to deal with their stimuli, and what's the best way to go back to normal. And that's what our platform kind of provides, that very custom, very individual, very, very much, safe experience, because, the worst, saying is, like, take the headsets off, and, if you're uncomfortable, you're done. So, but the experience is super immersive, because it's essentially like a 3D experience. And yes, it's not a real life, but it's pretty close to a real life.
This is so fascinating and a little bit scary, I should admit, when you're actually seeing the biggest fear of your life right there, but in a smaller doses in the beginning, as I understand. Right.
Well,
Yeah.
well, the thing is, it is scary, but at the same time, kind of a traditional therapy that is going through imaginary exposure, it's not an easy exercise by itself, because essentially you are asking a patient to imagine something that they've been trying to avoid, just to kind of a mental part that some people can or some people cannot. Some people have a better imagination, some people not. So we're actually removing this um, uncertainty from the equation and giving this tool to the therapist, who could actually manage, what kind of exposure, how long, and so forth. So it's much more manageable and controlled environment than a traditional imaginary exposure. Again, it doesn't have to kind of replace it, but again, it just gives you a different tool to work with it.
Before talking to you, I actually did not appreciate the both ends of the VR technology. One end being it can be super powerful and it's scary that you're actually seeing it. But the positive side is it's not so ingrained in your mind that you can just remove it and it's gone. So
Right.
that's a powerful kind of a safety guardrail. I think the important value that I see is that sometimes the patients simply cannot imagine because they have been so programmed to avoid those thoughts. So the doctors cannot work with them. But this one gives a tool that you don't even have to imagine. It's right there in front of you, right?
And plus, add to this equation that sometimes it's just people, it's like if people have a social anxiety, and we talk to some people who have a social anxiety, when you're telling them, like, go to the doctor's office, they simply cannot. Or they're in location where doctors are not available, or this particular specialty is not available, and they're not able to travel far. Or, for example, one of the classical examples is actually fear of flying. Before, actually, people who have more resources would hire a doctor to fly with them on a plane. Doctors actually have parts of the plane kind of built in their office, but again, that costs a lot of money. I mean, that providing this option that actually, just virtual reality provides you inside of the plane at a, fraction of the cost to go on a plane with you, that was never available.
And I'd imagine, considering all the insects and snakes that you're talking about, if we want to have a real time experience, that's probably just not possible at all, like bringing in exotic animals.
Or another example, which is completely, it's a recent experience. We have a partners in Israel, and so they had a lot of people with PTSD, and they asked us about the images of Gaza. Images of Gaza controlled by IDF. So we actually use the AI to recreate the images of Gaza. It's actually very close to what apparently to what's actually, how it looks like. So AI is great for that. And overall, there are a lot of things, could be super specific, like, fear of, people have a fear of driving, but is it a highway or is it a, city? Is that a bridge
or the
or
traffic.
traffic, right? So that's what you could recreate, and this is what essentially the whole point to make it personal, to make it individual, and to give them a tool that where they could go back to normal, kind of guided way to normal through the breathing exercise, through some body relaxation and such, in the same platform that again that wasn't available. Again, it's very immersive. It's very, guided way to go back to normal, very individual, and that silver bullet, as I said, I don't know how else to explain it. Some people could have some issues with virtual reality. Well-known fact that, like, 5, 7, 8% of people would have, for example, a motion sickness. But clinicians, they didn't have this option before. Now they do, and it's not that expensive. It's not that complicated. The hardware is not that expensive. It's like a $300 headset from Meta. It's very affordable, and probably not everybody knows, but actually VR headset qualifies as a mobile device because it has screens, keyboard, and internet connection. So consider it a next generation of your TV or
Absolutely. I mean, VR, if you can get the headset right and in a way that people actually would love to wear it for a long period of time, I think we got a really powerful tool and making us aware of the surroundings too. I envision is you're always at the doctor's office when you're using the VR, right?
So for us, it doesn't really matter where we are. We provided, telehealth option. We provide a group option, so multiple people could be in a scenario. So it's really, doctor could be in a scenario with a patient. So yeah, we have all these options. Uh, right. So if doctor has a VR headset, doctor could be in this scenario with a patient. If you have like your computer, you have we called it a launch pad. You have this, it's built on the same technology. Essentially, it's a screen where you could control what patient will see. You could control what patients will do. It doesn't really matter, same office or half across the world.
Wow. So that's fascinating. Just out of curiosity, but do you also would require a caregiver to be there with the patient if they are remote? Somebody.
That's a part of this. So we're working with anxiety, which is a disorder. So that's why psychologists could work with that. That's why social workers could work with that. Yep. Well, ideally, you want to be in the office. You absolutely don't have to. As I said, some people cannot be in the same office. Some people need some treatment. So like you have an anxiety, you need a treatment now. You don't have time to go to the to drive to the doctor's office. You could essentially connect with the doctor, and if the doctor has time, you're putting your headsets on and you're in a session with the doctor. Doesn't really matter where you are. You just need an internet headset and internet connection.
This is fascinating. I mean, then you can have it's a matter of having, like, as a society, as a group, being able to afford a $300 headset, and then you have the best providers around the world who can provide that service to you. One question for you: what is the most memorable patient success story?
It's kind of funny because our business, about 99% is actually B2B. So we're actually most of our customers are actually psychology, clinicians, psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, social workers. But occasionally we do have we have actually people calling us who have tried the traditional going to the therapist, didn't work. Strangely enough, we have quite a few patients, not the patients, users. Again, where we do not provide a psychological service in any means, but we have customers in UK, and I didn't know, but it's big issue in the UK with with the whole socialized medicine. They got a 10 step system, and in order to get to a real treatment, they have to go through the first, like 5 steps at least. So we had one gentleman calling us. Again, it's not like he has a huge issue, but for normal people, right? But he has a fear of heights to the point where he couldn't get to the 3 steps. So it's, yeah, it could be really, human brain is a big mystery. So how me IT person sees this, it's basically at some point you just have a bug in your software and it just doesn't allow you to do anything. And so he couldn't get to the 3 steps, and he's like, look, guys, I tried everything, doesn't work. I'm willing to try. Can you please, help me, and can you give me a software to try, because nothing else worked. And it was probably already couple years ago when we just started. We had this fear of heights scenarios, gradual exposure, and it was like, look, we would highly recommend that you would go to the psychologist. And he's like, uh, it's a UK, it's complicated. I have to wait for like 6 months, and they would give me some, essentially just a guy who just graduated from college. He doesn't even understand what I'm talking about. So he bought a VR headset. We gave him our application, and in about a week, he basically was able to go to these 3 steps. In about 2 weeks, he actually went to the mall on the escalator, like first time in his life.
Like a real escalator.
Yeah,
Okay.
like real escalator
Wow.
in a mall, and he's like, I've never been in an escalator in my life. This is wonderful. I never thought that I would be on the escalator. Basically, again, that's a very unique experience where you see that something you build is actually working and it's helping people. And I think it's wonderful that people have this option. That yeah, again, I mean, honestly, 21st century, come on. It's like you have a technology all around you. Like, why not in a psychology?
Yeah, the more we understand psychology, more we learn that how little we know about psychology. And that's why like I am like impressed where you are with the AI, AR, and then psychology, like cutting edge of cutting edges technology where it's going.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have imagined envisioning a person going in an escalator will warm my heart, but the story did.
And we are very careful. I mean, we're not replacing a psychologist. Psychologist, you need a psychologist. You need a person who understands, to identify your issue, to basically to guide you through this. It was never our goal to replace it, but UK has a very unique kind of a setting, and we're actually trying to work with the NHS there, and we're trying to work with psychologists there. It's a little bit. I mean, it's very different from what we have, for example, in the US. And even in Europe, it's different from Europe. They develop their own system. I'm not that familiar with the system. I cannot judge if it's good, bad. But few calls we had with the people, with the issues in the UK, they complained about it. And again, it's individual cases. But if we could help, absolutely. I cannot imagine us kind of rejecting people who are asking for help.
Yeah, I mean, we deal with, I've been on this side of the health economics, and it's such a difficult decisions on doing this. But again, healthcare, I think, is one of those things that we are just beginning to understand the impact of it on every aspect of human life, right? And hopefully it'll get better and access will be, yeah.
And unfortunately, this issue with anxiety is so underrated. People don't understand how deep this anxiety could be, or how life-changing the anxiety could be. And I'm not even talking about like PTSD, and it's not always kind of a war related, but even PTSD from your childhood memories, like, physical abuse, it's altering your life. And if there is, help, and there is a alternative, I think I think at some point I read some statistics that every year mental health costs the world economy like $80 billion or something. And I think it's seriously under kind of estimated because there are some regions where people just don't talk about their mental health issues, like Middle East. People they just don't talk about mental health, and there are regions like in Africa there is like a uh, zero point 0.1 doctor per 100,000 people, and like, who is doing a statistic there? Can you really trust a statistic where there are no professionals literally in some countries? So I think it's seriously underestimated.
I think they might be addressing gangrenes, and we don't have enough doctors to address immediate life-threatening situations. And how do you go and say that, okay, I mean, even in the Western world, it is difficult to identify mental health. And I come from India, and there too, the mental health issues is something you don't talk about too freely. I think it's getting better in the cities, but still definitely not much talked about.
No, absolutely. I travel to some countries where people, it's not that it's not an issue, but they have issues what they're going to eat tomorrow, which is a much more pressing issue than mental health. So yeah, but again, it doesn't mean that there are no mental health issues. It's just kind of overpowered by other issues about personal safety, security,
And the next meal.
yeah, and the next meal,
Yeah,
exactly. So, but it doesn't mean that they don't have a mental health issues.
absolutely.
It means that, people are not addressing it properly and it's making it worse.
Yeah. You brought up how this can help people who have been abused too, but I'm not going to ask you that question. I want to pin it, but I'm not going to ask because I'm not qualified, and I think it is too deep an issue to discuss.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not
Yeah,
qualified either.
this is yeah, got to
Yeah.
be careful. But I want to leave this topic in a very high note that the patient that you helped found literally another level in life, right? So that's a
Mhm.
remarkable achievement by itself.
No, absolutely. And my position is it's a little bit kind of off topic. Uh, my personal experience is if I would learn earlier in life, running my own business, how to deal with anxiety, um, it would be so much better because like as a business owner, you're always dealing with anxiety, you're always dealing with stress, and it's affecting every part of your life, and if I would have this option before, I think that would make a difference. And I know, like, for example, my children will be dealing with anxiety because that's a strange part. Anxiety is a natural part of your life. It's not really anxiety, it's basically level of anxiety. So it's like stress, of course, we're predetermined to have an anxiety. We are predetermined to have a stress, but the level of the stress and how we are dealing with the stress, that what's making a difference. And if there are other tools available to deal with this anxiety, to deal with this stress, I would honestly, kind of like, I would welcome it. I would definitely try some other option, kind of like, if there is something else available and something else I could try, absolutely. Yeah, if somebody is interested, there are over 200,000 articles on the subject. You could find it in the Google Scholar. Virtual reality exposure therapy, virtual reality for anxiety. Over 200,000 articles already there. How much more effective virtual reality versus traditional treatment? How much more effective virtual reality for anxiety treatment versus a traditional approach? It's all there. I have nothing to do with it. I'm not the one who wrote these articles basically, but when you start searching, there is such a huge body of proof that virtual reality could be helpful actually, and is helpful for this kind of issue.
Eh, I mean, if you have like a couple of references that you refer to, like a meta-analysis or a top systematic analysis, if you send me the link, I would love to add those as a resource for people who are going to watch this podcast
This is
too. Yeah.
actually my favorite book. Sorry. Let me try to find the
Focus.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Uh,
Almost there. Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. There
So
we go.
it's basically
Uh,
this is that is one of our how to
okay.
God.
Virtual
It's
reality
called
therapy for
virtual
anxiety.
reality therapy for anxiety. It's Elizabeth McMahon, and she was our advisor, but unfortunately she passed away last year. And she'd been doing it for God knows, like 15 years plus. And I had the privilege, kind of talking to her and then working with her in the last couple of years before she passed away. And I think that's one of the best books about virtual reality, honestly speaking, you could find. But again, go to a Google Scholar there. Again, 200,000 articles, and you could find these references to pretty much any aspect of anxiety, just Google Scholar is wonderful. And but as you can see, this is my, I keep it on my desk because it's one of the probably the best books on a subject. And that was actually one of the first books I read on a subject, and I think still that this is one of the best books.
I have a couple of slightly loaded questions, and perhaps we
Sure,
can.
absolutely.
Yeah. So the first question for you is, what is the biggest pushback that you have from the healthcare, and how are you dealing with that
So
pushback?
we don't have a pushback from actually clinicians. We don't have a pushback from psychologists and psychiatrists. We do have a pushback from some associations, to my surprise. And that's one of the most bizarre kind of aspect of this, because like we have people who love kind of dealing with this, who actually just think that it's a next greatest thing. But associations, I don't know if they're afraid of us. We recently applied to go to some show, and we submitted all the paperwork and we were rejected. And I was like, why? It's like, what seems to be the problem? And they said, well, we can reject you. And I was like, I understand that you can reject me, but why? And here is the part I don't understand. So we've been dealing with associations. I've been dealing with associations, and I'm also like part of a couple associations myself. Associations are typically responsible for providing education, providing a training for their members, to essentially to tell them what's going on, about new kind of stuff that that is available for their members in their field. This particular association is, and I'm not going to name the association, but they would rather talk about board games in their monthly letter than about virtual reality. And I'm just like, so you think that in a 2025, and I'm not saying that board games are not important. I'm just saying that you had the last 50 years to talk about the board games. In 2025, I think you should be talking about something kind of more, kind of technologically advanced than the board games. But no, they would rather talk about the board games in their, monthly letter, in their, magazine, than about virtual reality. I'm just like, you got me. I don't understand. But that's the one part. The second part is there is a huge misconception, and that's we're dealing with on a regular basis. Like, for example, people are saying like it's too expensive. And I was like, no, it's not. It's like it's a $300. You probably bought a headset for your children last Christmas, and you didn't even think about it twice. So technology is not that expensive anymore. It's a $300 from Meta. And there are also headsets available from Pico, HTC, and I think Samsung is coming out with a new headset, and a big screen is a little bit more expensive. It's they got a Beyond 2 technology is not expensive at all, and it's complicated. No, it's not. It's actually fairly simple. And this misconception is like I actually went to see on the customer site yesterday, and that's essentially like it's probably too expensive. I was like, mm-mm. And we had this presentation a couple years ago. It was complicated and expensive, and I was like, yeah, that's technology for you. 2 years later, it's not expensive, it's not complicated anymore. So that's pretty much the two things we're dealing with. But other than that, frankly speaking, we're getting kind of a call every day, and talk to people every day, and people are very excited that that's actually becoming and more kind of a cheaper. I mean, our subscription is it's $120 a month, right? So for one headset, and if you have a practice, $120 a month, it's not a deal breaker for.
And the same headset can be used for multiple patients.
Yes, absolutely. You need one headset. You could treat unlimited number of patients. You basically we're not limiting on anything. It's month to month subscription. It's very very simple, right? It's We're trying to make it very easy to kind of to get. And as I said, if you have your own headset, great. You will install it on your own headset. If you want to go buy it, go to Amazon, $300. They will deliver it tomorrow to your door.
Yep, and software download and
Software, I mean, it's just don't overcomplicate it. It's actually another mobile device. It's like, yeah, well, if you're dealing with your phone, which is way more complicated device than.
talk about going into settings and stopping those notifications.
Yeah, and yeah, I
Yeah.
recently discovered, which was a complete shock, that with the latest update, Apple now they have a Siri in every application, which I didn't know. So basically, if you go to the settings and there is a Siri, so they're collecting information from every application on your phone. And I'm just like, I I don't think I signed up for this.
Wow. Okay. Apple is supposed to be safer than Android, but
Right, right. And it's supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be nice to you. It was actually the time when I turned off the Siri was that I was driving, and I asked Siri something, and the Siri said, I cannot answer because you're driving. And I was like, how do you know that I'm driving? So it was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with Siri anymore. There is too much information.
so essentially, as far as you're reaching out to patients, that is pretty much a highway. Except final question again: what was your toughest lesson learned, and what is your advice for innovators who are getting into the VR?
I would say that so when we started with VR, right? So I knew that it's a good technology. I knew that it has a potential. But for example, if you're looking for investments, there are only very few investors who even want to talk about it, because a lot of the investors, it was like big kind of a spike of all these companies around 2014, 2015, about like 10 years ago, when the first MetaQuest came out, and it was a whole bunch of companies at that point. They started, and it was a great technology, great potential, and they're essentially died in the process. So, but investors, and investors got burned, so nobody wanted to talk about it. That's the first. It's not like we were seriously looking for investors, because our goal is actually to be self-sufficient, to be profitable. But it just was a big surprise that like, yeah, nobody even wants to talk to you really, unless you're, creating a game in virtual reality, which is a completely different. If it's a B2B application, yeah, that's there is very little appetite about that. But at the same token, I would say that we met so many people like enthusiasts, like we got our board of advisors who are like wonderful and who wants to work with us, and essentially we're not paying our advisors. That's the first time in my life, honestly speaking, that somebody wants to work for free because they like the idea, they think that it's great, it has a great potential, and when you're telling them that that could be an alternative for anxiety, for treating anxiety, and people are talking about anything from law enforcement to actually jails to basically first responders and such, and there is a huge potential for that. People like love the idea, they want to help you, and that's very encouraging that people actually willing to help, and it's very nice. But at the same token, it's a tough market. It's a, it's a tough business. Like virtual reality. When we started around 21, it was different, right? Then ChatGPT happened. COVID first, then ChatGPT, and you asked me at some point about our plans. We have a roadmap, but with all fairness, with the way the technology is moving right now, I can tell you kind of with a certain degree of confidence what's going to happen in the next 6 months. But anybody who is telling you that they know what's going to happen in a year or 2 years, they're full of, pardon my language, crap, because I don't know what's going to happen. And it's exciting, it's great, but it's also adds some pressure that like you're learning something every day, and I like it. I like learning something every day, but again, not for everyone. It's because it's constantly changing environment, and for me, it's exciting, but it's also changing every day.
It's not everyone's cup of tea.
Absolutely.
And I think you are very highly selected for that particular cup of tea that you're
Yeah.
working on AI and mental health, which are in all three of them.
My mom was telling me that I'm special, like I'm not sure if I'm, special or just that dumb, but yeah.
At some point, I think we cannot be too risk ours to get into places where nobody has gone.
Yeah.
And then you will not have innovators. So I
Yeah.
absolutely like the idea of being a health tech hero like yourself. That'll be awesome. So for the final 90 seconds, Peter, here, I would love to give you the 90 seconds to pitch anything you want to pitch to the audience who are going to see this podcast. You got your
I
90
so
seconds. Yeah.
yeah, so basically the deal is very simple. You can try our application. You need a VR headset. We have a free trial. If you're interested, in trying or working with us, just let me know. You can find me on a LinkedIn, and I think you found me on a LinkedIn. It's kind of a so yeah, no, I'm happy to work with. We're happy to work with anybody, and I think the field is super exciting. We are, we love what we do, and I think that's the key. Like if like an oldest trick, if you like what you're doing, you're not working really. So to add to that, if you know how to deal with the stress, even better.
Okay. And I think there are few people who can do what you're doing. And thank you very much with that, Peter. And